So that's fueled by fire, just being able to crack some problems that I had hitherto thought
Yeah, that's very satisfactory.
Yes.
And a disproportionate sort of high comes from that, doesn't it? It's like, yes, it's like, oh, look at me. Look at me go. I'm a star. Yeah.
I'm actually as clever as I thought I was.
Yes. I'm as clever as I thought I was. How funny. Yeah.
Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How's things? How are you feeling?
I'll tell you in a minute. You go first. Tell me about your week.
Well, I've had quite a week so far. I have had a session with the web design people. There were two of them. And they are going to completely redesign most of my pages, and they're throwing in a redesign of my book cover as well, which is nice.
Oh, good.
Only drawback, I have to get it coded myself. Or they'll code it, but they'll charge me. So when people say web design makeover, they mean the design elements of it, not the coding elements of it. So
I'm confused. The coding bits are normally hidden from me by having some WordPress template which seems to have all of that thrown in. This is some sort of bespoke arrangement where you need coding as well, is it?
Yes, it is. And they do have, if I want it done on Genesis, which is the platform I've got my website on at the moment, they've got coders and they can do it, and they've quoted me a very reasonable fee. But if I want it done on Thrive Architect so that I can then make amendments as I go forward, or make templates and copy pages and things like that, then I need to find a Thrive Architect specialist.
Okay.
So that's my next job. I've also had a session with the SEO man. It was only a 15-minute session, but he gave me some really good insights, and it's really got me thinking about SEO again.
Good.
Because of course, when you think about it, paid traffic is all very well, and it gets traffic going quickly, and it tests offers quickly, but SEO is a long-term investment, isn't it? Because
yes, it is, yeah. And for me, works very well.
Well, interestingly, I know one of the reasons why it works very well for you.
Oh.
Because if you go to a website called, I'm not going to get too geeky about SEO on this one, but we might want to do another session. If you go to a website called majesticseo.com, and put your own URL in for free, you can see that whether you've got a good trust figure and a good citation figure, and your trust figure should always be bigger than your citation figure. And citations are where people link to you, but the trust figure is when, I'm not absolutely sure, but I think it's something along the lines of that the sites that are linking to you are more trusted websites than just the number of sites that are linking to you.
Okay.
So you've got a good trust figure and a good citation figure, whereas I've got a terrible trust figure and only slightly better citation figure. So,
and this is all about people linking to me. Like, it's not a strategy I never really encourage.
No, but if you create great content, you're naturally going to inspire people to want to link to your website, and you've obviously done that over the years.
That's the nicest thing you've said to me today, Nicola. Not just you, but anyone. It's 11 o'clock in the morning here. It's the nicest thing that's happened all day. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So I encourage all our listeners, especially if you're not getting as much traffic as you'd like, to go and check it out. Now, NicolaCairncross.com is a very old site, but what's happened is I've dicked about with it. I've changed what it's all about. I've imported and exported content. I mean, I've done all sorts of things that I shouldn't have done with it. But he did give me some really, really good tips, and added on to the tip I gave the listeners last week about screaming frog.
Yes.
Then I think that will get you started thinking about your SEO, and I think we could work up quite a nice little middle bit about some basic SEO tips.
Okay.
If anyone's interested.
Well, you are, and it'll only be one episode in 230 or something.
Yeah.
And if you look at our website, which I did this morning, and down the left-hand side, it sort of tells you what are the most popular episodes.
Yeah, I've just added that back in, actually.
Well, isn't that interesting? Have you seen which ones are the most interesting? Not necessarily the ones that you found the most interesting.
Well, no, I mean,
or I did, funnily enough.
Back up. This is only the most popular ones in the last month. It's
even so.
Time to crawl
even so, the one at the top surprised me.
Yes, yes, it did me too. I'm now deeply irritated by the colour of those links, and I cannot.
They're orange, aren't they?
Well, they're sort of a peachy colour, which sort of goes with the pink, but doesn't go with the green.
No.
So I'm now obsessed with trying to find out how to change that. But
okay.
So what else happened? So I've had those 2 sessions. I went to a very funny thing. I went to Kalamata on Tuesday. I drove there for an hour across the mountains to go in for my 2 specialist appointments that were recommended just as a precaution by my new doctor here. And ended up having, I was late for the first one because although I left plenty of time, when I got there, I couldn't find my way into the car park. I kept swinging around the one-way system. And in the end, I just had to abandon the car on a street and try and run to the appointment. And they let me in, luckily, because when you're paying privately in Greece, they treat you a bit better than they would in the NHS. And so I had my first appointment, which was all clear, very thorough, all clear, fantastic offices, fantastic machines, very dour doctor, but as he was handling various intimate parts of my body, I didn't mind him being dour. I didn't really want him to be that friendly.
Yep.
And then I had a nice lunch and a chat with you before realising that I should actually have been in my second appointment.
Oh.
So I then had to, I don't know what happens to me. I get these, I do this with planes as well. I get times embedded in my head. And no matter how much I check my tickets and things, I cannot shake off the certainty that I've got something at a certain time, even if it's the wrong time.
Yeah.
So I think that must be an old age thing, perhaps. So what else happened? The other thing about that Stephen said about SEO, just for very quickly, was when you mention people in your blog posts and you link to their websites, you should always try and track them down and mention and tell them on Twitter or whatever that you've done that, because you're running the risk that the linkerati will then retweet you, reshare you, whatever. So that's another good tip, which I've never bothered doing. So that's something.
I'm writing down this word linkerati, and I'm not quite sure whether I like it or loathe it. I'll let you know.
Well, it's basically like influencers, but people who are likely to link back to
I totally get it, Nicola, but I'm just saying that a hybrid word isn't generally. It's like mumpreneur. It isn't generally my favourite thing.
No,
but
Heather would be rolling in her.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
What about you then?
In the UK, unlike Greece, last weekend was Easter, and it was, 4-day weekend bank holiday. Much busier than I would have liked. On Saturday, I went to meet the owner of the house in Hampton, where I'll be spending June, and she's the lady from the Stupa Group.
Oh, okay.
Who had been? She's a retired publisher, age 69, on full pension, lucky bird, and. She has a very nice house. I'm going to look forward to living there. No pets, just some watering in the garden. But she was proper blue stocking, with an enormous tottering pile of the Times Literary Supplement, and she still reads newspapers. She said, I'll try and remember to leave you out the voucher for the weekends that you get that I'm there. I'm not sure I'll toddle to the newsagents and buy a physical copy of a newspaper, but you never know. And her publishing career had been with Mills and Boon, which she didn't really want to tell me because she rather assumed that I would make judgments about that, which I didn't at all, actually. And I said to her when I was leaving, I've never really read any Mills and Boon. What was what was generally regarded as the best book that was published during your time with them? She said, I don't know, really, I haven't read it myself. But she said, I'll try and leave you out 1 or 2. I'm not sure I'll read those either, to be honest. But
I tried a romantic fiction at the weekend. I had to put it down after a
Well, I commercially, like Andrew Lloyd Webber, I admire their output, if not their creativity, to be honest. But I'd forgotten how nice Hampton is. I wouldn't mind living there, and it's very near my family. It's very near the River Thames, and it's near where my parents used to live. And I have a Harry that took over the bookkeeping end of my accounting business for my big client. I met him there, and his wife's got a beauty shop there, and she hadn't replied to my Facebook message, so I dropped in to see her. She wasn't there. It was a nice bank holiday weekend, and she was taking the sunshine, but she had a lovely receptionist, and I explained who I was and what I wanted, and then Sue replied to me on Facebook saying, "Oh, I can't wait to see you." So that was quite nice. And Sunday I spent in a way I'll tell you about later, and Monday seemed to be all about busy jobs, laundry, sweeping the back steps, which is where the cat I'm looking after has her litter tray, prepping for the cleaner's visit on Tuesday. And I didn't really feel like I'd had 4 days off work, but that's okay since I'm having next week off. In fact, the only work thing I'm doing next week is our podcast and one client that I rescheduled from yesterday. And all of these jobs were kind of in the nature of either self-care or improving life down the line a bit, and they're often the hardest to do. But, that's why we all need a deadline. And this week too has been uncharacteristically social, with dinner with my niece on Tuesday and with an old friend on Wednesday. And consequently, as you know, I was completely cream crackered yesterday, and I rescheduled everything, including our podcast. I simply peaked too soon, and I ran out of energy. And I got up in the morning and looked at my diary. It said 10 o'clock till 8:30 at night, and I thought, I can't do that. I can't do any of it. I did do my last commitment of the day, which was 7 till 8:30, which was my small business big magic group. But I'd spent most of the day in bed by then, in my nightie, sleeping. And I do feel a lot better today. But I realise how long into, from Christmas till, the end of April, 4 months is a long slog without enough leisure time, really. And I'm pleased I've got some time off coming up, is the short summary of my week.
I'm still mystified as to what you do in all this leisure time, but
well, I often sleep and I relax.
Yeah, I'm sleeping more, I must say.
So tell me what's fueled your fire.
Well, 2 things are fueled by fire. As is often when you have a break from something and you come back to it, you can solve problems that you had thought were insurmountable. I've always tried to get Facebook lead ads going for me. That's where people click the button to learn more, and an actual ad, an input box pops up on their actual Facebook thing. And you're supposed to be able to get leads much cheaper using lead ads, but every time I've ever tried it, they've just slammed my ads down and said, no, we don't let you advertise. Well, I appealed again this time. I had another go at this, and I appealed again. I disconnected from Drip, and I reconnected, and then I had another go at setting up a leads ad, and they disallowed it, but I did appeal it, and they did turn it on. And yes, I am getting leads much cheaper, but I can't seem to get anything cheaper than £4 a lead, which, when you don't know how long your sales cycle is quite an investment. So
I agree, that's expensive. So when you say there's a pop-up box, that to opt into something?
Well, basically what happens is, if you're on mobile and you're on Facebook and you're looking and you see one of my ads in your timeline and you click the Learn More button, rather than being taken out of Facebook to a website where you have to then input your details.
Which Facebook doesn't like.
Yeah, it actually pre-fills the lead box that pops up within Facebook with their Facebook details.
And what are they getting, though?
Well, your free gift, whatever you're offering.
Yes.
It just makes it much, 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 much easier for people on a mobile to opt in, because it's pre-filled. Yeah. They can just alter it if they want to, or they can just go, subscribe.
Yes.
Or send it to me, or whatever it is you've got on the thing.
Yes.
So that's quite good, and it does work, and it hooks up with things like Drip and Aweber automatically now, so you don't have to export your leads and import them, which was another thing that used to put me off. So I'm pleased I got that going, even if it's not working necessarily for me. I mean, I've invested some money in about 50 leads from that to see if they turn into anything, and if they repay themselves, then I'll know, through books.
Don't you? I mean, what I've always learned from you about this is that they've got to be expensive at the beginning while you're gathering intel, and then you drive the price down later on. Don't you think they'll get cheaper once?
Yeah, no, they're getting more expensive, not cheaper. They went for a week and they were getting cheaper. And now they're getting
that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's quite typical of Facebook.
Is it?
So yeah, it is. Everyone complains about it. So I'm not prepared to sit there and watch my leads go up to £5, £7, £10.
Oh, I agree.
Until I know whether I'm going to get a return on investment. So
yes, absolutely right.
Lead should do something, I would think.
Yeah.
Over time, and I've put a UTM tracking link on it, so I'll know whether any of them do convert to anything. The other thing is, I've managed to get my ManyChat working, which is, as you know, I don't know if you do know, is a thing whereby if people put a specific word in the comments of your posts on Facebook, or if people hit you to message you, you can set up an autoresponder system, a bit like an email autoresponder system, but it's all done by Messenger, and you can ask people questions. You can give them 3 options. If they hit an option, they can be taken off to opt in for things or watch things or whatever. It's really very nice indeed, and I think we should all be looking at it, because as we're spending more and more time on social media and people are spending less and less time opting in for email lists, it's going to be a very important second tier of one's marketing. So, but I couldn't get it going, and I couldn't work out why not. Anyway, I came back to it today, and I just managed to get it going and updated everything and made it all work beautifully. So I think
I'm pleased for you. I should let you know, and you won't be surprised to hear that I don't want anybody marketing to me via Messenger.
No, but when it's done well, I like it. So
I'm not surprised to hear you say that,
yeah.
Because we're different in this regard. And I have a client who uses it, and I love her to bits, but I'm not keen on. And I'm only included in that so I can see what her marketing is doing.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
Well, so I'm working up to doing another challenge, and what I want is for people to be able to put something, in the comments underneath.
Yeah,
that'll then automate the sign up to the challenge without taking it out of Facebook.
Okay, well that could be quite nice.
Yeah, because it's all about keeping people where they are and not taking them away from.
No, I totally get that with Facebook. Yeah. I've been banging on about that for decades. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's fueled by fire, just being able to crack some problems that I had hitherto thought unsurmountable.
Yeah, that's very satisfactory.
Yes,
and a disproportionate sort of high comes from that, doesn't it? It's like, yes, it's like, oh, look at me. Look at me go. I'm a star. Yeah.
I'm actually as clever as I thought I was.
Yes. I'm as clever as I thought I was. How funny.
Yeah. What about you then?
Yeah, well, I can't really say it's fueled my fire, but there was nowhere else to put this in our notes, so I've bunged it in here, which is, as you know, I put my website back online, but only because I really want people to know about our podcast, and that was stimulated by what we're going to talk about today, which was our sudden surge in downloads, and also want people to know about my book. And funnily enough, immediately I put it back online, somebody bought an ebook via Cells. And when they buy them via Cells, I have to write to them very quickly and say, did you mean to buy an ebook? Because if you didn't, Cells swallows up the money, including the fee, and I can't refund you. And it is one of the listeners to our show. And she said, yes, I meant to buy it digitally. I've uploaded it. I'm enjoying it. Thank you very much. So that was brilliant. But I really only want my sales to come through Amazon now. So I've had to unpublish a lot of pages to keep it, so to corral people only using, the pages I've got on the menu, rather than accidentally discovering other ones I don't really want them using.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad it's back, because I just felt that it didn't look great.
Well, if only I was perfectly happy with the way it looked and it suited my requirement 100%. But if the other alternative was me forcing you to change the bit that we say on the end of our podcast is, and you can find more about Judith Morgan on her website, judithmorgan.com, which of course you can't. So I had to put it back online, really just to satisfy that, because of our hockey stick, which is our focus of the week, which is if more people are listening and more people are looking, then they need to see something other than what I'd got there. But I reserve the right to revert imminently.
The other thing you could do, I mentioned this, is you could redirect judithmorgan.com to your Facebook page.
I had thought about that, and I don't rule it out. But when I really have finished with my website, I will also have finished with Facebook.
Oh, okay, fair enough. A sad day that would be.
I'm not against. Still loving coaching. I'm not loving anymore after 15 years the endless. I don't know. Let's not go there. Marketing, really. I still love it on one level. It was yesterday that made me realise I can't schedule in my diary to do any more than half a day's work. I can't do 10 o'clock in the morning till 8:30 at night. It's too long. I don't have the physical stamina for it. And really quite a lot, 50% of what I do in one way or another. I mean, if you look at today, for instance, we love it. It sounds like we're having a lovely chat, but actually you've got to prepare for it early in the week. We've got to spend an hour together. We've got to think about things like download numbers and getting reviews in foreign countries and blah, blah, blah. We'll come back to that. But, there's a lot of joined up thinking that goes with successful marketing. And this isn't that difficulty that all new coaches have, which is I just want to coach, I don't want to market, because I've done it for 15 years. But I'm tired with that half of my business, never with my clients.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Which leads us very nicely, doesn't it, into Focus of the Week. And we're going to talk about the two sides of our excitement about our soaring over the 100k downloads, aren't we?
Yes. Well, let's give you a bit of context. Last week I went to just do a routine check on numbers just to make sure we're going, slowly, albeit slowly, in the right direction. And I found to my astonishment that we had several days where we'd had 500, 600, 700 downloads. And then one day we'd had over 1,000 downloads. And I was very excited because I thought it might be the beginning of the hockey stick curve, but woe is us. We're back down to the normal. Well, that's not true. We have doubled our average daily downloads now. So they were 30, 40, 50, and they're now 50, 60, 30, sorry, they're now 50, 60, 70 on the last sort of 4 or 5 days. And I cannot puzzle out what's happened. It happened once before. Now, if somebody like an influencer had and we're going to lead on to a different topic that arose from the fact that we have actually topped the 100,000 downloads in the last 4 years. So that's a great thing. But I cannot, if anyone's listening who might be able to help me puzzle this out, I'd be really grateful, because if somebody had tweeted out about one episode, then we'd see that whole 7,500 downloads that we got last week would all be on one episode. If somebody had tweeted out just the name of the podcast and sent people to ownitthepodcast.com and people had subscribed in something, I would have thought they'd have listened to something. But if they'd subscribed, then they would have probably got the whole lot downloaded, which would explain why all of our downloads got a boost across all 200 and something of them. But now it wouldn't explain why our download numbers aren't up substantially, because you think if 1,000 people had come and downloaded and subscribed, we'd have, instead of 60 downloads a day now, we'd be getting 1,060 downloads a day. So I completely can't make any sense of how this could have happened at all. So it's a bit frustrating again. But the thing that last week that I wanted to talk about in this section, and I know you've got some thoughts as well, is when we started this podcast, we started it with the expectation it would be successful at some point in the future. We didn't know when, we didn't know how. But we thought if we do great work and we turn up every week and we keep at it, then something good will come of it. We didn't know what. We put our faith and our trust into that concept. And then sometimes we've had our ups and downs with it. And I know you've several times thought about not doing it. I totally can't think of anyone else that I would like to do a podcast with. So I don't know that I would ever stop given half a chance, but obviously there's going to be a natural end to that. And it got me thinking about this whole topic of people starting things and not carrying on because they lose the will or the belief that it's going to be successful. And it manifests itself in my clients as they come along to Be Everywhere Online, they go through the training, and what I teach them in that is how to make 12 short videos between 3 minutes and 10 minutes in a day and record them all in a batch recording. And then that gives you all your marketing materials for the next 3 months. And what happens is people push through the pain of learning how to do one, and then they don't do any more. They don't do the 12. They don't do the batch recording. They just record one. And then they go through the rest of the system with that one, but then they often don't do any more. And it's very frustrating for me, because if they just did it like I told them to do it, they'd have 3 months worth of marketing and they'd be starting to see much better results, rather than somebody literally put one on YouTube the other day and said, well, what do I do now? Do I just wait and see what happens? And I said, no, you go and make another 11 of them.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm thinking about why this is, and I'm pretty convinced it's because people don't really believe in their heart of hearts that it's going to make a difference or they're going to be successful. Whereas I think perhaps you and I have got a little bit more of a robust, whether it's back to self-esteem again, whether we've got a little bit more of a robust self-esteem or a little bit more of a optimistic outlook that anything we do is going to have a positive impact. Whereas perhaps a lot of people don't have that positive outlook that anything they do is going to have a positive impact.
Well, I think we're career self-employed.
Well, what does that mean for all the other people that are self-employed?
Well, they're not sure they're going to be able to make a business out of something yet because they've had a job and they haven't been at it as long as we have, or they've got other choices, or other options, or they're flirting with it, or something. You know, you and I have got no choice but to make money from our self-employed activities. So if this doesn't work, we've got to try something else. Now, if the only time we've had any doubts in the 225 episodes, or however many it is the only time we've put this under review. Every other time, when, you know, I would say 98% of the time, it's enjoyable. And when marketing or any activity is enjoyable, you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
So everybody's got to I totally, you know, I have this belief that, you know, it doesn't need to be a podcast. You just need to find something that doesn't feel like marketing, that feels easy, that you enjoy and works, and you can turn up to it and keep doing it. So as soon as any of my clients report any success in anything at all, I say, you know what you've got to do now? Don't stop.
Yeah.
You know, but as you rightly say, I've just worked it out. We've been doing this for 4.5 years. And the things I would say are completely different, no surprise to what you've just said. You know, you romanticized those 4.5 years by saying we went into it like this. No, we didn't. That's what we thought we went into it when we look back. You say we're not attached to the outcome. I am. I want everything I do to be successful and profitable in one way or another. And any time I've had any doubts, it's because it doesn't look either successful or profitable or both. And so that's why we got a huge shot in the arm when you said, look, 100,000 downloads. And I went, no, actually, it's 105.5, and it's now up to 106.5, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, the fact that people are listening and enjoying it makes a difference to me.
Yes. And even though, see, what worries me about these freak episodes is that, you know, that perhaps there's some random algorithm thingy, or perhaps Libsyn isn't reporting properly. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But then when I looked at, because, you know, I thought, oh, bloody hell, we're back to normal. And actually, we're not back to normal. We're back to about double normal.
No, we're back to the new normal, aren't we?
We're back to the new normal. Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
So instead of, you know, 30, 40 episodes a day, it's now 60, 70 episodes a day. So we've doubled our, but it's just frustrating for me not to be able to puzzle out what's happened, you know.
Well, I think a thought that's just occurred to me listening to you is the thing we always say about, I mean, vaguely, our topic is about business, which is what people want, not what they need. And if we compare it to podcasts that are about fun things like, you know, crime drama or art or sewing, you know, it's the same problem in this podcast, not a problem, same issue in this podcast that it is with the other elements of our marketing, which is Irene saw that I was subscribing to an astrology newsletter, and we very, very briefly discussed in typing on Facebook the business model, which is, you know, getting people to subscribe small amounts of money in large enough numbers for you to have a regular income from downloads of what you know. The difficulty is monetizing business in the current economic. It's never been easy, actually, Nicola. It's never been easy. You and I have gone on against all odds. It was easier, actually. When I first knew you, it was easier because the internet wasn't so crowded, and everything was different. Everything changes all the time. And when you went to Australia and you had that success, it's because you were addressing people who were serious-minded about business. That's not the majority of people. The majority of people are having a go. I think, you know, I think if at any stage we had stumbled in the 4 years and been like everybody else, i.e. done the podcasting equivalent of 1, not 12, it would have been perfectly reasonable. As it happens, we found a way to keep it going. And I'm not sure that we can say, look at our commitment and look at our hard work, because we've put a lot of hours into this. But if it wasn't enjoyable, we wouldn't still be doing it.
No, totally. And that's, I mean, you know, I'm not setting us up as paragons of virtue in any way, shape or form. I'm just saying that that perhaps we have an expectation of success, whereas perhaps a lot of people have an expectation of failure.
I think we have an expectation that if this doesn't work, we'll try something else, because we know we've got to keep on trying.
But also, we know, from it taking 4 years to get to 100,000 downloads, whereas I know someone in Superfast Business Forum who started a podcast about property investing, and he got to 9,000 subscribers like within 3 months per month.
Well, we have discussed him before, and the interesting thing about that is that might put other people off. It didn't put us off, oddly. We did moan about I moaned about it. It's like, can we find out how we did that? I'm always trying to improve what we're doing, and it is interesting how often you said it with your Facebook ads, and you've said it now again, how whilst we think a lot of marketing is measurable, it seems that the things that we're engaged in currently aren't especially measurable. They're measurable. This one is measurable to me in as much as 99 times out of 100 I can turn up with ease and do it with you. And what I like particularly is the encouragement we get from around the world. We love it. You can see when I put out the messages this morning that it was live before 8 o'clock. It's supposed to go live at 8 o'clock, but it was live early this morning, and I was up, so I put out the 2 messages. People are liking those posts before 8 o'clock in the morning because they're gagging to listen to this week's episode. Now, and the extraordinary thing about it is, and it goes right back to you talking about your soul music and me talking about line dancing at the beginning, it goes right back to, yes, they're getting a bit of business in here, but they're also getting 2 life stories which encourage them to have a life of self-employment. So we just don't know, because most of them don't communicate with us. We don't know why people are enjoying it.
No.
You can only assume from those that do comment and say, it's another cracking episode. I'm going to up my game on selling, or, this one has really encouraged me because, and thanks for being so, out there about Abraham Hicks. And, the people we are engaged with in our Facebook group do give us a steer, actually. But we both said we were surprised by the show that's at number 1 on the list.
Yeah, the other, it's relevant for me as well, because I'm trying to decide whether to carry on with my daily videos, my 1-minute videos, and they don't actually have to be 1 minute, but and I got them, a lot of them up on Alexa Skills, well, Sarah did, and she's left me a little bit of a clue about how to do it again, but I've got to puzzle it out from scratch again. So I'm trying to decide whether to do those 1-minute videos. Now, if you look at it, well, it's a bit like the podcast. It's a bit like the tip of an iceberg. The sitting, thinking up 7 things to say is not an issue. The recording the 7 things to say is not an issue. The editing the 7 things to say, the making the thumbnails, the uploading, then Margelle takes it from there and spreads them out everywhere. But again, I don't know what impact they're having. So I'm having a crisis of belief about the 1-minute videos. But James Schramko's still turning his out. So what I ought to do is just say, well, he's doing it, so I ought to be doing it.
I think he's a good example for you, and I think he's a good example generally because he's a decent sort. He's not a spiv. No. But there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that if either you or me had been attempting to do this podcast, we would have stopped alone. We would have stopped a long time ago.
Oh yes.
A long time ago. Yeah. We could have done a short series of 13 if we were lucky.
Yeah. That's a very good point, actually. We have making a commitment to other person. It's like with my writing, the Write Club ladies came around this week and we were talking about the fact I didn't want to write. And then we said, we're having a Write Club Classic meeting next week. Someone will have to submit 500, I think it's 1,500 words. And I just immediately volunteered because I thought I'm not going to write anything unless I have to commit to someone else, and I won't want to let them down.
Yeah. Yeah, you need that. Well, I said at the beginning, those things, all those jobs that I'd done, they had a deadline, which would improve my life further down the line. And it feels sort of painful, and you bend yourself to that. And people said to me, I'll tell you later the one I did on the Sunday, but people said to me, I'm amazed you did that on this lovely sunny bank holiday Sunday. And I said, well, I'd already put it off for 3 weeks. It had to be today or never. Even dedicated, hardworking, focused people are still human beings who just want to skive off on a bank holiday Sunday and eat hot cross buns, Yes. It isn't. Well, we're talking about the human condition, and people wouldn't need coaches at all if they could just do all this stuff easily.
That's very true. And they wouldn't, there's lots of things. They wouldn't need apps that count their heartbeat and things like that.
No. So I've got a few thoughts here, and I'm sure shall I? Yeah. I think we were very focused on our numbers. I used to laugh at you in the mid 70 and 80,000s because you used to say, we're nearly at 100,000. I go, no, we've put on about 500 since last week. I don't know what you're talking about. But then we forgot to look. And suddenly, I don't think we've looked since Christmas. And suddenly we looked and we'd soared over 100,000. So it's quite weird that although what you measure does improve, and my bullet point here is let's keep measuring, when we forgot to measure, it put on a spurt.
Yes. Well, it didn't really. It just kept steadily going as we kept steadily going.
Well, I think it probably did better than that, actually.
Well, it did better than that last week.
Yeah, I think it escalated, funnily enough. So I've got the things that we can do here. So let's keep measuring. Let's keep asking for reviews. So I'm going to explain here that Nicola's come back from Australia with the understanding that 100 reviews is important, and aggregated across the world, we've got 76. So we need 24. And she's noticed that we've got certain territories where we've got none at all: South Africa, New Zealand, and Greece, and we all know people in those places. But as I've reported to you, Nicola, New Zealand seem unable to post a review, and more than 2 people have tried, and at least one of them is very techie, and I've got a third one on the job. We don't seem to know why yet, and they've suggested that iTunes isn't fully supported in New Zealand. I've got Karen, the virtual midwife who used to live in Oman, has gone back to South Africa. She's having to go down there, and if you can get somebody to test in Greece, and then when we get the answers of that, if it's I don't know why we can't post in Greece, South Africa, or New Zealand, I'm hoping you'll ask in one of your podcast forums to see if you can. There's an unexplained problem there, funnily enough, because you said in Fueled Your Fire what had fueled your fire was solving problems. We might have a little problematic to solve there, which we don't know what it is. Obviously, if we're going to get the 100, then we need to encourage the 24 in the UK, America, and Canada, where it seems easy to post reviews. So I'm going to keep reminding people about that. I do love listeners joining our free Facebook group. I'm going to remind them every week in the show notes to do that. And I want them to come in and tell us who they are, because that does help. I think we're working ourselves up to another round of the increasingly successful listener guests. We've got one up our sleeve, which is Karen Flannery, the lady who's got the lingerie shop. I think we'll do her next week. But I think we need another Friday where we do 4 more, because I think they're very engaging.
Yes, and the other thing that would really make a difference would be if anyone's got a blog, if they could do just a short, 2 or 3 paragraph review of the podcast and link to the podcast.
Oh, that's a nice idea. Yes. And so I've changed the blurbs I put on the bottom of the Facebook notes each week now from subscribing to join the Facebook group, and please support us on Patreon, because they're 2 things that we want at the moment. But I think the listener guests, if you're a listener and you'd like to be a guest, having heard all the so-called nervous people produce marvelous 20-minute stories to inspire, they are actually Sue, Anita, and Kath are in that the top appreciated posts, aren't they? Yes. I know you're saying it's the last month, but the listener seems to like the listener guest.
Yes, they do. They have been popular regularly. And
yeah.
The other thing is I've done is I went and, because I knew that we used to have that how to review on iTunes video embedded in our blog posts.
Yes.
And so I've reinstated it because it dropped off somewhere.
Well done. But with the note that it doesn't work in some countries at the moment, and we don't know why.
No. Do you think I should put that underneath then?
Well, not yet, but I think it might be useful. Let's keep them trying in those strange countries. If you could get somebody in Greece to do it.
I can do it. I can just go and, because I am in Greece. I could go.
Yeah, but I don't think you're a fair test.
Oh, and also
can you get what's her name? Steph. What's your friend called?
She's not here at the moment. When she gets back, I'll ask.
Somebody like that would be great. Somebody. Do you know somebody who actually listens?
Not really. No. Not that submitted it.
No. So if you live in Greece, we'd love you to have a go there, and South Africa. We can't work out why certain countries we can't leave reviews, but forget that for the minute. If you live in Australia, Canada, and the UK, and you can provide, and 24 listeners can do a review for us, and Nicholas, and I've linked to it, or I'm going to link to it again in the. Oh, it's a lovely link you've made. It's called ownitthepodcast.com / What? The link on our website is very easy to remember. Hold on, I'm just going there. Yeah, it is.
Easy to remember. You've forgotten it.
No, well, hang on a minute. It's called. Hang on. It's called ownitthepodcast.com / rate review own it podcast.
No, okay. I'm going to change that link. I'm going to change it to review.
Okay.
Because that's ridiculous. I didn't
All
even
right.
notice. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. ownitthepodcast.com/review.
Yes.
Yes. Marvellous. Now, if you're not au fait with iTunes, and that is half of our audience, it's a little bit trickier. But if you are...
One sec, Judith, stop. Yeah, hello, Vera. Hello. What are you going, Daisy? Are you back? Yeah, finished. Finished. Okay, got the toilet. Very good. Thank you. See you on Tuesday. See you next week.
Καλό Πάσχα.
Καλό Πάσχα.
Πάσχα.
Easter.
Party.
Oh yeah, party.
Yeah. Party Πάσχα.
Melissa.
Μπράβο.
Melissa? Yeah, Melissa on Sunday.
Καλά να περάσεις.
Yeah. Have a good time, you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See how good my Greek is?
Well, she didn't understand Pascha, which is the word for Easter, which she kept repeating at you and you kept ignoring. But I've discovered, by the way, why your Easter is on a different weekend to ours.
Okay, go on then.
Easter is a movable feast. It's the only bank holiday in the year or religious festival in the year that isn't on the same date. And it's because it's a certain number of days. It's the first or the last or the something Sunday after the full moon, after the da-da-da. But the difference is we do that on one calendar and you do it on the other, the Julian and the Gregorian.
Yeah, well, it's all Greek to me.
And it's actually, if you Google it, it's fascinating. And it's not hard to understand at all. Now, let's go back to where we were. I want you to breathe and just think, what's this all about, this section? I know it's about what we've learned about from our 100K downloads and our 4.5 years' work and our ability to follow through. But what's the one takeaway from this you want the listeners to remember?
Well, I thought it started out as like the opposite of I'll believe it when I see it is you have to do it to see it to believe it. But then perhaps it's about fun and easy marketing.
Okay, I've put following through in a way, fun and easy marketing.
Because consistency is far too boring, isn't it? Because that's
it's quite dull. Yeah. Well, maybe it's an essential business skill we all need to learn. Consistency.
Or consistent fun. Find something that's fun that you.
So that you can do it consistently.
Yeah. Without it being a chore.
Okay. And the thought I want to leave the listener with is if you're a guest who's hovering on the brink of offering yourself as, being on our show, we'd love that. So just wave at me either in the group or on the page.
We turned down a lot of very dodgy requests from
we only want listeners. Yeah. We want people to demonstrate or, that we actually know or even can demonstrate that they understand the
spirit of the show.
I want to say climate, but it's not that. It's like you understand the métier. You understand, who we are, who we're talking to, who the other listeners are, and you can share what you love about it, not in word, but in deed, what you're going to talk. And I don't think it does them any harm. It's good for their businesses and their profile, isn't it?
Well, it's got to be, because if you're one of the people who've been on recently, then you've just been listened to by 7,500 people.
Yeah. Presumably. Yes. Marvelous. Okay. So. Yeah. Moving on, tell me what your word of the week is.
Humdrum. I know it's 2 words, but you could run it together.
No, I don't think it is actually. I think humdrum is probably 1 word.
I think it was when I wrote it down, which was yesterday. I was thinking, I still feeling uninspired, but I'm plodding along doing the usual stuff, and it's a bit humdrum. And I think the other thing was that it wasn't very nice weather. We've had the Saharan sand this week, which means that we've had uncharacteristically overcast days for a week now. But today the sun is out again, so I'm not feeling so humdrum.
Okay. And I've got commitment, which is related to the podcast. We're both still in, basically.
Yeah. Who'd have thought it, Judy?
Yeah, who'd have thunk it? Absolutely. Now. Let's go to PUs.
Well, project updates. Well, nothing on the writing yet, but there will be 1,500 words by next Tuesday, if not sooner. Really, I've what's the word? Peaked too soon on this one because I've told you everything.
Okay. Well, I have Worthing news.
Oh, go on then.
On Easter Sunday, what I did was spend 4 hours doing the vast pile of conveyancing paperwork, because there was the impending viewing on Monday, Bank Holiday Monday. There was an investor going to view it, and I thought, well, I'll give the big U an encouragement by doing my bit on the Sunday. Well,
very willing, yeah.
Talk about a big chunk of dedication. I had to bribe myself with hot cross buns in advance. I didn't even make them an end. I didn't even make them an end of project bonus. I started with the buns. I will tell you that it was 27 pages, plus 6 more, plus 9 emails to achieve it. The first viewing was on Easter Monday with a nice sounding buy-to-let investor who said the flat works, which I know, of course, but I suppose it's quite nice to have it confirmed. But he's widening his search to include Brighton, which I guess means that property values are such that he probably thought Worthing was the extent of what he could afford, but he's realised that he can afford Brighton. So he's gone off to have a look at Brighton. I can see the estate agents have tried to phone me this morning, which they are expressly forbidden from doing, as particularly in the middle of the podcast, and that's why they're forbidden to phone me. But I imagine they think they have news. And there's been another one of those marketing updates as well, where after the initial spike, it's dropped down, but not badly. There's been 1,000, well, that's quite an interesting marketing statistic, 1,000 views on Rightmove, some of which, of course, could be multiples, because the ones I save on Rightmove I look at over and over again. But 1,000 views on Rightmove led to 1 actual physical viewing of an ideal buyer who's a buy-to-let investor. So, but the big news here is I've done that bloody paperwork that sat on my desk for 3 weeks, and it took 4 hours on a bank holiday weekend.
That's shocking, isn't it?
And then I had to go to the post office, and it was a do.
You knew where the post office was.
I've done it. I've done the project. I've done it. Yeah, it's a huge thing off my back as well.
Yeah, marvellous. Okay, so is that it on project updates?
Yes, it is. Tell me who or what's impressed you.
Well, I've got a brand new cracking crime drama for everyone.
Okay.
I'm late to the party on this one. It's called The Bay. And it's a box set on ITV, and I can't understand why nobody has mentioned it or seen it or enjoyed it, because
it's like Broadchurch, but it's set in Morecambe, isn't it?
Yes, and it's got some really, really fantastic actors. Let me tell you who it's got in it. She says
it's got Morven Christie.
Yes,
is the lady. Yeah,
she's really good, and the chap in it is really good too. Meet the cast of ITV's The Bay. Here we go, Radio Times. So rely on Radio Times, can't we? Yeah, she's really good, and who else? Oh God, please.
She was in that really scary thing last year with the woman from Line of Duty about the 2 women who competed for each other's job in a firm of architects because one of them was on maternity leave, and who was the baddie, and we never knew until the end. It was really good.
I didn't see that. We got Ripper Street's Jonas Armstrong, and This Is England's Chanel Cresswell. And Jonas Armstrong is really quite a dish. I remember seeing him as.
And who does he play? The father who may or may not have done it.
Yes, Sean. That's it. Yeah, exactly. Sean Meredith. And there's who's the policeman in it? He's absolutely brilliant. Hold on one second. Here we go. Daniel Ryan. Daniel Ryan. Now, what was he in?
I should confess here, I gave up on it after episode 2. I thought it was dull.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I really like it.
I don't care who's done it. But actually, that's not about the Bay. That's about Abraham Hicks. Abraham Hicks has stopped me watching most telly. Yeah.
Dark things, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I can understand that. Anyway, I'm enjoying it enormously.
There are good. No, she is excellent. I agree with you there. And what a marvellous premise it begins with, doesn't it? Where the 2 of them are shagging up the alleyway outside the pub when they shouldn't be. And well, I've got to episode 5 now, and she's just had to go in and confess to her boss. God. You see, that's where I had to wait for 5 episodes. Well, I didn't. It was just like, when is that going to come out? And living on the suspense of when that's going to come out is, I find, sometimes quite hard to bear. Not so much. Well, I tell you what it is. It's like when a human being has done a bad thing in a drama or real life, but particularly in dramas, you already know what's going to have to happen in the future, and waiting for that to happen in the future, which is the sort of, and the compounding of their potential downfall, I find quite painful to watch. Well, I think it's because our brain doesn't know the difference between watching TV dramas and real life. Yes, true. That's probably what's going on. Now, look, can you see that my browser has now decided I'm in a Middle Eastern country? It's showing all my ads in. No, I can't. I've minimised you. Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't share my screen anymore, do I? Honestly, I have these weird things where, in spite of my various technical things, I end up getting Arabic everywhere all over my computer. I don't think it's a virus. I think it's just where it's getting confused. It thinks I'm in Turkey. Right, so that's it then. That's us.
No, it isn't. I haven't told you who or what's impressed me.
Well, it's obviously not me.
I had a very funny exchange with my nephew. I think probably about, I think was it over the bank holiday weekend or slightly before? The golf obsessed one.
Yeah. And
his all-time favourite golfing hero is Tiger Woods, who won the US Masters in 2019 for the first time since 2005.
Yeah, he's made a comeback.
And that's a long time, 2005 to 2014 years. My nephew was 13 in 2005, which is quite young to contain your loyalty for 14 years. And he's stuck by his hero, even when he wasn't winning. Now, as a teenager, you don't do that. You jump ship to somebody who's winning. And so I sent him, I knew he'd be delighted, so I sent him a text which simply said, "Go Tiger." He's so funny, Jeremy. He sent me his reply said, "He's the human embodiment of perfection." And I think that, what's impressed me was that thing about Jeremy sticking his loyalty for 14 years when he wasn't winning. Yeah. And during that time, actually, there have been some less than glorious personal revelations about Tiger Woods. But it speaks to our focus of the day, not just my nephew sticking by Tiger Woods, but Tiger Woods himself too. We've done this for 4.5 years. Tiger stuck to golf. Obviously, there are other wins and advantages for him and other competitions and all of that. But he stuck to that for 14 years to get back up there, and he's 43 now, which means he was 29 in 2005. So there's that commitment again to, this is what I do. He's career golfer, we're career self-employed. It's a commitment to, if this doesn't work, I've got to keep practicing, I've got to keep tweaking, I've got to get back to the results I want. And actually, that's much more impressive than either of you or me. 4 years. Jeremy, age 13, Tiger Woods, age 29, sticking by each other for 14 years till he gets back there. I just think that Jeremy's texts are so funny. He's the human embodiment of perfection. That's how much he loves his hero.
Yeah.
Is that sweet?
Yes, lovely.
I just laughed.
See if I can find any pictures of golfers in celebration of Jeremy.
Okay.
All right then.
Yeah. Now, see you next week, and we're going to doing Friday next week as well, because I'm moving house on Thursday.
Yes.
Okay. See you then. Bye. How do they do it? Not a care and suffering.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. The podcast is called Own It, Your Business and Your Life. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.